Whether you're a guy a guy in a cape, fuck.
What? You didn't fart this time.
I didn't.
Do you not? Hold on! Don't you stop that.
Or a rogue who's sneaky.
Do you not remember the words? Do you not remember the words?
I just got tongue-tied. I got tongue-tied, you prick.
Do you not?
He got a little tongue-tied.
I got tongue-tied. Yeah.
No, I think that he was like reaching.
You guys were sitting here flattering me. We go from the flattering, okay, I'm like blushing still, to trying to do this fucking intro. Whether you're a guy in a cape or a rogue who's sneaky, thank you for joining Chris, Jason, and Roger.
You totally got tongue-tied there at the end.
As we entertain the geeky.
Yes.
Wow, that was honestly, if you had the original intro where me and Jason were talking about him burping as opposed to farting,
that was pretty good.
It was better banter, and I'm sorry.
It was good.
This kicked us off of that recording channel.
Yeah,
problems.
We're
good now.
Technical difficulties.
We're good now. Technical difficulties. That's part of our thing. Right?
We're good at those.
Fuck. Yeah. Well, guys, it happened. Sad day. We're gonna have a moment of silence to honor the legend Stan Lee. It's gonna be an extended moment of silence because the man was such a legend. And then we're just gonna kind of talk about him for a while. You'll be missed.
Excelsior.
So, getting the news of that was one of those things that it made me start reflecting on the characters and stuff that I've enjoyed a lot.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, my favorite comic character's Spider-Man, and it's like, oh, that's like Stan Lee's crown jewel.
It was Stan Lee's favorite comic character too.
Yeah, I mean, he wrote it up until
as
how long
it should
ago?
be.
I mean, he wrote, I don't know the exact dates. He wrote Spider-Man for a long time.
Because he was still writing the comic strip for
in
a
the
while.
newspaper.
In the
Yeah.
newspaper strip.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, long time.
Yeah, very long time. But it
Probably
was
as long as that newspaper strip has existed.
probably. You've been around longer than the Post-Dispatch, bro.
How do you want to be that guy that's got to take over that strip now?
You don't.
I mean,
I think they'll retire.
that would
think
suck.
you don't. I think you.
In all reality, when Bill Watterson died, they retired Calvin Hobbes.
And that's what you should do.
Yeah.
I mean,
it should be retired.
it's only appropriate at that point. Okay.
Hey, Marvel, retire all your characters. Is what we're saying?
No.
No.
The comic strip in the paper.
Newspapers
Yeah.
should
Marvel, just retire
retire
'em all.
Stan Lee's Spider-Man strip.
I want to see nothing but Ghost Rider, Daredevil. That's it.
No, I need my
And the
Spider-Man and
Punisher.
my X-Men and my
Oh
Captain
my God,
America.
don't we though?
I do.
Yeah, I need Spider-Man in my life.
We can still have Thor.
Okay. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah.
Doesn't change the fact that we need
Spider-Man and
Spider-Man.
X-Men,
I mean,
which were
just
both Stan Lee creations.
just have Thor.
The Incredible Hulk.
Incredible Hulk.
Yeah. No, he's gone.
Roger just killed.
We're not
Thanos,
doing this.
you prick.
We're not doing this. We're
He's
not
gone.
getting rid of characters.
He's gone.
No, but you
Iron
start
Man?
kind of you reflect on that a little bit, and I was like, well, shit, that's like half the. Okay, there's only about 25% of me that's good, and
I don't even know if I'd go that high. buddy.
that's debatable, right? But
I mean,
that's only because of characters like Spider-Man and stuff, and you start to look at that, and it's like, man, I'll look through the panels of a comic that of a character that you created, and take from that moral lessons, and you take these and you try to apply them to who you are, and you see these very profound things that these very profound characters do, and this man had a hand in making that, and in turn had a hand in making me, and it's so weird that somebody that you've never met, like I've never met the guy, I've never had a conversation with him, could have such a profound impact on my life and the lives of millions of people.
Billions.
I mean, I've said, many times that without comic books, I wouldn't be who I am.
Right.
Right. I mean, we like you said, we learn lessons, and honestly, you're entertained. So you're not even really aware that you're learning to be a better person because you're reading about a hero, and it's entertaining to you, and you enjoy the fantasy of it. And then when you face moments in your life, you make decisions based on those things without even realizing.
And
that's
it's based on what you know, and that's
right.
what you know at that
that's
point.
What you know, yeah. And it's fantastic. I mean, a credit to Stan Lee for creating so many of the characters, but again, a credit to him just for the things he did for the comic industry as a whole, because it wouldn't be what it is without him.
Well,
he was one of the first people to stand up to the Comics Code Authority and say, no, stories should reflect life.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, a lot of the stories that have been going around about Stan Lee on the news is like the one about him going to parties and not wanting to admit that he wrote comic books for a living.
Right.
Yeah. No, he said that.
Like at parties, like, oh, I'm an author. I write children's books.
Yeah.
Now you look at comic book artists and authors, and I write fucking comics.
Well, yeah, it's because back then we didn't realize that comics could be literature.
I write graphic novels.
We understand now that there's compelling comic stories that can be just as impactful on your life as a good movie you've seen or a good book you've read. It's just a different medium for storytelling.
It is.
And what we understand now is that it can be just as impactful as those other things.
Well, and that's why he made the pen name Stan Lee, because he was saving his last name for
his book.
His book, exactly.
His book that never came out.
But I mean, it's so funny. Even I guess the best laid plans of mice and men. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you might have planned it one way, but dude, you became the man, and
Right.
I mean Stan the man.
Stan the Man Lee.
So,
I mean, it's interesting. And Stan Lee, a lot of negative things have been said about the man in the past. A lot of positive things, and one of the things you can truly honestly see is the relationship between who I think has gone both ways, Kevin Smith and himself.
oh yeah,
Because Mallrats, Kevin Smith's writing Daredevil, like him and Stan Lee are buddy, and then you go to Chasing Amy, it's Marvel can suck my cock, and da 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 da. He not a big fan of Stan Lee, and then towards the end, they're back to being buddies.
Sure.
Like
I don't think he ever had any ill will towards Stan Lee.
Yeah, I mean, in all reality, I think one of the best interviews I ever saw was Kevin Smith interviewing Stan Lee for Gods and Monsters.
yeah,
It's just a little DVD about comic books in the industry.
Yeah, Stan always had that way of saying, I might not agree. You might not agree with what I've done. I might not agree with Marvel. I might not agree with the company. But you're a fan. I'm a fan. Let's talk like fans.
Right.
And that's something that creators don't necessarily do a lot of.
Well, that's one of the things that fans get weird about. Are you a Marvel or a DC guy?
And Stan Lee's like, I'm both. I wrote for both for a minute.
Yeah, I mean
But Stan Lee's always been the kind of person. Storytelling is storytelling.
Yeah.
No matter what company it comes from, no matter what author it comes from, no matter what book it comes from, storytelling is good storytelling, and mad respect he had for other people who told stories like him.
Yeah. And it was amazing to see the man go from writing every day for 6 days a week to being in charge of Marvel to, I'm not going to say necessarily fortune, but fame that was unknown to him at that time. I mean, look at the late 80s, early 90s. When comics just exploded. The Marvel was on
And
TV.
companies almost went bankrupt.
Yeah, well, that's because, number one and the comic bust boom. But somehow Stan Lee still survived.
Yeah.
Marvel might not have. Marvel was almost gone.
yeah.
Marvel almost went bankrupt.
I thought they did declare bankruptcy.
No,
No.
they didn't. They almost did.
Well, that's because they sold all their movie rights away.
They sold the movie rights. That's how they saved their company.
But Stan Lee was still
Which
Stan Lee.
sucks, but, hopefully they're about to get them all
They're
back.
putting it back together.
They're getting the band
It's
back
taking time.
together.
It's a puzzle. They lost some of the pieces. They got to get them back.
Yeah, whatever.
No, it's really interesting, and like it's fun. Like we've not put out an episode in a minute, and it's really cool to get to do this episode and to reflect on a legend. I mean,
the prize comic in my collection is Amazing Fantasy 15. It's
Like,
the
for
prize.
real?
You have that?
Yeah.
What?
I've told you guys this.
No,
Would
you have
suck
not.
your dick, dude.
You have never once said I have
Yeah, I
Amazing
did not
Fantasy
know you had
15.
that.
It's not in good shape.
Who gives
I
a
did
shit?
not- yeah, dude, I would kill somebody to have one that looked like shit hanging on my
I actually
wall.
asked Paul what I could get for it, and he offered me, I think, $8,000 for
Yeah.
it. Which is, not a lot, but still a lot for a comic that's missing most of its cover
Yeah, that's dude.
and missing some of the pages.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
We did not. This is the first.
Yeah, neither of us had heard of this.
Yeah, way to just drop the bombshell. I mean, I'm like, hey, I got a comic signed by Stan Lee somewhere, but you're like, yeah, I got Amazing Amazing Fantasy 15.
Yeah, dude.
I got that.
I have
Yeah,
a boner.
My dick's big.
right now.
My grandpa gave it to me. My grandpa, my mom's dad, was a hoarder. I mean, honestly, in reality, once he died, we realized. But he used to just get stuff from auctions, or people would give him stuff, or he'd find stuff in the trash. And he brought me a box of comics, and a couple of good things were in there. One was Amazing Fantasy 15, and one was the original printing of The Killing Joke that I still have and is
Holy
graded.
fuck,
I had the
dude.
original. I have the original printing of The Killing Joke.
Yeah, mine.
Yeah.
I got a 9.6, I think. On
I
it.
don't know. Mine came in that lot when we were looking at opening that store.
Yeah.
And like Paul came over and he tried to grab it. And I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
I was
I'm
like,
still
yeah,
blown away by
no.
this amazing. I don't care about The Killing Joke.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
like,
it's
Amazing
amazing.
Fantasy 15.
Yeah, he's
Are
all
you
like,
shitting
hey.
me?
I read it one time and then put it away.
I want to cry right now. I'm so fucking I'm okay. There's a level of envy here. I love you still.
I'm not sure I do anymore.
But I'm just like, what the fuck, man?
First off, we've known you for years. For years.
How is this not the first thing you say to me?
I knew you.
It's a comic.
Yeah,
book.
when you walk up to me and you're like, Chris, Amazing Fantasy 15, I've got it. I would have been like, fuck yeah!
Like, I knew you before there was gray in your beard.
This is not something I talk about.
How can you not? That should be tattooed on your dick, man.
It should be.
Because for me, it's not a big, huge collector's item. It's not this big, amazing thing. It's something that my grandfather gave me that's part of my collection.
Which makes it even cooler.
makes it
Okay,
all
but
the
there are
sweeter.
6,000 other comics that are part of my collection. Do you want me to talk about every one of them individually?
No, just
No,
that
because
one.
we don't care about
Hold
those.
on, time out. If
Batman 497, The
you've
Breaking of the Bat. That's in my collection.
If you've got an Action Comics, you know,
Yeah, do you have, yeah.
So
Are,
one-
are,
one-
I have a reprint of Action
are,
Comics.
are
number
Uncanny
one.
X-Men #1?
I don't have that.
that you know what's funny? That Uncanny X-Men #1 isn't worth that much.
I mean, it's worth a lot.
it's worth a lot, but it's not like
we don't make a lot of money. It's worth a lot.
Amazing Fantasy 15. So if you have one that's decent, that's a $25,000 book.
Jason's
The
copy is
highest-
missing pages, and someone offered him $8,000 for it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. The highest valued comic though is Action #1. That is the
Well, yeah,
comic that
$2
has
million
sold for
comic.
the most money
Yeah.
in this world.
Well,
I don't-
now. Well, just wait.
Well, it could
I
change.
mean,
Yeah, I mean it's the comic industry.
Well, and with Stanley
Stanley.
passing, all of it, we're going to see a bump. And
I'll bet you Amazing Spider-Man 700 goes through the fucking roof because there's a variant cover that has all the different authors and stuff that are
And
in the
Stanley's-
cities, and Stanley's name is on there real big.
yeah,
There
yeah.
were a lot of signed copies of that floating around that Stan had signed. I'll bet that shoots through the roof now.
Oh yeah, I mean I wouldn't be surprised if anything that's signed by Stan Lee
I mean-
is now more valuable.
Oh,
That- well, that
obviously,
was- that
because
was
even
already-
if it's nothing.
but-
that's a limited run at this moment.
I mean,
that
in
will
all
never
reality,
be done.
In all
Yeah.
reality, I can guarantee you there are people that have Stan Lee's signature on things
Napkins.
that didn't even get written by Stan Lee.
Well, yeah,
mean,
that's
that
my
Amazing Spider-Man 700, not written by Stan
my
Lee.
but I mean,
Stan Lee
that's not
signature
what I'm
is
talking about,
just
right?
a Spider-Man comic.
Right, I'm talking about just a random comic, right? Like that had nothing to do with
Hey,
Stan Lee and will
sign my
never-
Superman comic.
Right. That
Okay.
There are people that have had Stan Lee sign the most ridiculous things, things
Dude,
that you would never expect
I would
to
have
get
him
Stan Lee
sign my underwear, whatever I had.
Well, but I'm just saying, like, if for me, when I'm looking at a convention and I'm gonna go and there's gonna be authors there or artists there that are gonna sign things, I'm looking for things that they did
Yeah.
because I want their signature on
Like
the thing
Amazing
that they
Fantasy
did.
15.
I've never actually met Stan Lee though, because every time he's ever come to town,
It's insane.
expensive as hell
It-
just to
it
sit
was.
and have a conversation with him for a sec.
For half a second.
Yeah.
Right, just
Hey,
to
how
be
you
able
doing?
to-
I'm
Just to be able to walk up and have him sign something is $500. It's like, sorry, I'm not doing that.
Well, not
I love
anymore.
the man. Well, but I mean, even if that wasn't the issue,
You're
right?
such a dick.
Even if that wasn't the issue, it's still a ridiculous amount of money to pay just to get someone to sign something.
It depends. The thing is, I don't want to say I have issues with the way conventions are run, and paying $500 for Stan Lee, William Shatner, Patrick Stewart, it's a lot of money. But a lot of times that's how they get their money.
That's how they support themselves. Yeah.
No, I get that. I'm not denying that, but you have to also look at the fact that a huge chunk of that money is also going to the venue
It's
for
going
hosting the
right.
event.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
Right. So part of that is, yes, this is how they're making their money as an artist, signing a book, or as an actor, signing a picture. But a good chunk of that money is to pay for the space.
Well, and conventions have changed so much because it used to be if you had an autograph from a celebrity, that means you ran into that celebrity. Like it was, hey, I was at a coffee shop and there was Sammy J. I had him sign my napkin because that's
Yeah.
what I fucking had.
Right.
Now it's
Very specific.
Well, like you said, I know I'm going to a convention. I know they will be there. To me, like if I could get Bruce Campbell to sign one thing in my collection, it would not be what everyone would think it would
Deadlands Noir.
be. No. I mean, well, the Deadlands book is one of them, but the prize one to me would for him to sign Bubba Hotep. Because that's a movie that everyone's like, why not Evil Dead? Why not? No.
I would have him sign his book
Oh yeah, his book's a good one.
because his book's amazing. If you've never read Bruce Campbell's book, you should read it.
I mean, for Stan
It's
Lee,
like a whole lot of chin or something. What was it called?
the man with a lot of chin, something like that.
I mean, he made fun of himself in the title of his own book.
Like I would have him sign my Deadlands because he wrote the foreword for that. But for like Stan Lee, I honestly would want him to sign one of those Saturday morning strips.
Oh, right.
Because that's just unique. That's something for it's like you having Amazing Spider-Man 15. It's not about the pride. It's not about you showing it off. Because if you did, you would have graded it, no matter how shitty the condition is, and they'd be sitting up front in your mantelpiece for everyone to walk through your home. You're like, there it is, Amazing
First
Spider-Man
appearance
15,
of Spider-Man,
right there, missing some pages. Don't you worry about that. I have it. You don't. No, boo boo. To have him sign something
also been never me. Like I'm never the kind of guy that's like, you don't own this? Guess what? I do.
Well, you kind of just did.
You kind of did. Like you dropped a bomb.
I was talking about it because it's relevant to the conversation we're having about Stan Lee.
Yeah. Now I want to die. Thank you.
But yeah, I think that would be my favorite thing for him to sign would have been just that Saturday morning strip.
Well, and how cool would it be? How cool would it be to have one of those strips signed and framed?
And just
would be
hanging
beautiful.
in your office wherever. But to me, that's more personable than having him sign Amazing Spider-Man 15 or having him sign Amazing Spider-Man 54. That's the one with the great, right?
Or 14, first appearance of Green Goblin or whatever. Yeah,
like those are nice, but something for me. I grew up not reading the Spider-Man comics because I couldn't afford them. I grew up reading the Spider-Man Sunday paper strips.
I think that was the most exciting thing to look at too.
And to me, that's where Stan Lee is for me. That and True Believers on the Pride of the X-Men. That voiceover, man.
You know what would be the best though is there was a series that he wrote for, I think it was for Marvel. I think it was published by Marvel's Icon line. But it was basically what if Stan Lee wrote the DC universe.
Oh, yeah.
And I think taking one of those comics to have him sign would probably be hilarious. Not only because it was a pretty ridiculous comic to begin with, and Stan Lee knows it. Like he said, like that was not my best work. He was like, it was just something that they threw at me. They were like, "What do you want to write a character that's kind of like Batman?" And he was like, "Sure, why not?" But not only would that be funny, but it probably would spark a conversation with Stan Lee that you could actually have for a minute while standing in line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like whose book is this?
Like
Who brought this?
You want that moment of where everyone like everyone's bringing the normal things to sign, and all of a sudden the guy signing who signed 1,000 signatures that day goes,
"What is this?"
Fucking right, man. Good job. Here you go, buddy.
Yeah, I took my Heroes Reborn, which is a terrible story, and it was only written to get the heroes back into the world after the Onslaught event when they killed everybody off.
Yep.
Yeah, they did.
That was literally the only reason they wrote it, because they realized, oh shit, we fucked up. Let's fix this.
Done got fucked up, guys.
And I can't even remember who the writer was, but he was at a convention, and I took it, and he literally said, "You might be one of like 5 people who actually owns this comic."
You're like,
and I was like,
damn right,
yeah.
I am.
And one day I'm going to talk about it on a podcast and blow my friends' minds.
Fixing shit right here.
Well, I was a kid when it came out. When you're a kid, the things about comics that you appreciate as an adult, like good storytelling and good art, aren't necessarily as important when you're a child. It's just, this has got Captain America on the cover, I'm going to buy it. Right?
Yeah, no,
like, and that's
absolutely.
why I owned Heroes Reborn, because every cover was like Thor and Hulk and Spider-Man and Cap, and they were all going to be in the same little 4-issue story. So yeah, I bought it. It was not a good story in retrospect. I could look back and say that's one of the worst comic stories I've ever read.
A lot of comics back and stories weren't so good.
That's why I bought my Secret Wars. They were in a 25-cent bin somewhere, and I got Secret Wars 1 through 6 for fucking
original Secret Wars.
Yeah,
Secret Wars 2?
No, original Secret Wars.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then I bought number 8 a couple of years back.
Notice how he said he didn't buy 7.
No, I didn't. I'll get it to fill the space.
What's wrong with 7?
Nothing, he just didn't have it.
No, I don't have it.
Okay.
I
was going to say, is there something about 7 that I should be pissed off
about? You should be outraged.
Yeah. Why? Because it's number 7.
I'll get it to fill the space. They had 1 through 6. That's all they had. So me being a kid with fucking like $3 to my name, I'm like, yes, this is the perfect collection. No, it wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't worth dick until like 7 minutes ago. Sure. The one book out of that was worth something, I didn't get until I was 25, 26 years old. So it was funny.
I'm still pissed at you.
No,
I'm still.
Everybody has the right to be bitter right now.
But again, this is you guys were Fantasy Shop customers and Fantasy Shop employees.
And you never told us.
I had this conversation with many people at the store.
Well,
I even brought it in and showed it to people in the store.
Holy shit!
Wait, you
dude.
brought it out into the open?
All right,
yes.
The next time I come over, just let me put my eyes on it.
It's not even at my house right now. It's at my mom's house.
Well,
in a
I need to go to your
box
mom's.
of comics.
I need to go to your mom's.
With all other comics.
Jason's mom. I'm coming.
Whoa.
Not like that, Roger. I need to see this comic book.
I'm coming over to go through Jason's shit that he left at your house. So
I just want to look at it. I just want to look at it.
I just want to breathe the ink. Really? I just want.
Can I smell it?
Can I
Yeah,
smell it?
there's still a few comic boxes sitting in my mom's basement that I never moved out of there. And
How do you leave that behind?
because in all reality, it's not one that I ever take out of the box. It's not one that I ever take out of the bag and board.
Apparently, he took it out of the box, took it to the fancy shop, and showed everybody.
One day, and I was very uncomfortable with that.
He's like, you guys want to? I'll
Were
come
you
on
like? Were you
I'll-
like
I'll
a?
join
Were you
the
like
podcast
a?
team?
Were you
Yeah.
like a drug dealer at that point? You're like, hey, I got amazing Fantasy
No,
15.
I had just
right
talked
here.
about it with some people, and
With
they were
a
like,
fucking
"Man, we
trench
would
coat.
like to see that." And I was like, "I don't really like ever bringing it and having other people touching it, but I will bring it in.
All right.
But no one's allowed to touch it but me."
Dear listeners, I want you to go down the Entertaining Geeky page, and I want you to find one of the pictures of Jason's character. It's the one with the trench coat and the fedora. I want you to picture him opening that trench coat and revealing Amazing Fantasy 15
with no cover.
with no fucking.
It has a cover. It's just got missing parts.
A couple pages like kind of falling off the staples.
There's
there.
fucking jizz and shit on it. For me, not him.
That's not.
And-
No, I'm actually like we're giving you shit, but that is really cool, and I'm
But it's
fascinated.
It's
That's
the
awesome.
only comic I own in my collection that is written
By
by
Stan
Stan
Lee.
Lee.
I get that. Yeah.
That's so special.
That's like the only comic I have, because in all reality, the goofy little like, oh, Stan Lee writes DC, those were funny, but I didn't buy them. I read them, but I didn't buy them. I worked at a comic shop at the time. I could read something without buying it.
yeah.
Yeah, I was the opposite when I worked at that comic shop. I
was
could
too.
not read anything without buying
That's
it.
what I did too. I think there were about
guys, there
three
was-
things that I read without buying.
There were days I
there were
spent.
whole years would go by, and every week I was reading like 30, 40 comics.
Yeah, there were
Yeah, I know,
days
you were
when working up
disgusting with
there
it.
I was.
that I spent more than I made.
But it's because I wanted to have the ability to talk to people about things that I might not necessarily be interested in, but they are. Right? And in doing so, I actually found some comics that I really enjoyed. Like, I never would have read The Boys. That was never something that was on my radar, but it's one of the greatest comics ever written.
This is why
It's so good.
This is why you're more than 25% good. You see, you were trying to relate to people.
Yeah, Chris
I
is
was.
like,
I wanted
hey,
to relate to
you don't
people.
have
You're
long
sweet.
hair? Go fuck yourself.
That's actually
That is
that's
actually
how
yeah.
I go through life.
I know. I know these things.
I wanted to take care of the people that relied on me to be the person that they came to and said, "How is this book?" I wanted to be that person that
You're
I could
like
say,
fucking
"I've
Mother
read that
Teresa."
book and let me talk." No, I'm not.
I'm pretty sure you
I
are.
just took my job seriously, and keeping up on the comic side of things was my job, because I'm a gamer, right? I enjoy D&D and I enjoy board games, but I enjoy comics more than anything. And John enjoyed board games. I didn't have to keep up on board games. John was playing all the board games. He loves board games. And the various other people that I were working with at the time also had their thing. Comics were just my thing.
You're so fucking awesome.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
You
you
realize-
are.
I just had pride in my job.
Do you realize his infatuation with you right now is simply because he thinks at one day in his life you will graciously show him Amazing Fantasy 15 right now.
I'm gonna look at it with my
Like
eyes.
that's really where all this flattery is coming in, and he's like,
No.
maybe if I tell Jason he's pretty, he'll show me the book.
No. The flattering is coming from him being like, yeah, there's a bunch of shit that I didn't care about that I read just so I could be happy to other people. And I was like, what? You did things to be nice to people? What did you get out of it?
I didn't get anything. You know what I got out of
You
it?
hear this?
I got out of it a tremendous amount of pride in being the guy that people wanted to ask the opinion of.
And you still are.
What are the other saints like?
How many miracles did it take before you became
All
a
right,
saint?
guys.
What
All
was
right,
your
guys.
first miracle?
We're talking about Stan Lee. Let's stop talking about it, please.
You're the closest thing we
He's
get to
probably
Stan Lee
a
right
saint
now.
too, yeah.
You have a connection to Stan Lee none of us will ever have.
Yeah, Amazing Fantasy 15.
Oh my god. You know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and it's probably not the most popular opinion, but have you ever read Amazing Fantasy 15?
Yeah, it's not that
I've
good.
not.
It's not a good
It's
comic.
not a good
I
comic.
haven't
No.
read it. I won't read it until I have it. In my hand.
You've never read like a reprint or anything
The
like that?
only
No, I've
thing
never read
that
the reprint.
makes it good is the fact that it was the first appearance of Spider-Man, and Spider-Man went on to become such a fan favorite character. The comic itself is not a good comic.
It's a
Agree to
stereotypical.
disagree.
It's just a stereotypical
No,
comic.
okay,
I mean, that's
so-
actually the best opinion. Right? Like,
I
it's-
have seen it on like in a film. Like I watched something where they did it with voiceovers,
Yeah.
but I've not actually read it.
Really? That surprises me because I've read it
Yeah.
a bunch.
You know what's funny is I have a tiny copy of it that's this big that I've never read.
Interesting.
Yeah. I won't read it.
Like I think honestly the best the best Stan Lee, like we're talking like I'm just starting with characters. I'm just going from the ground up. I think his best actual story arc or story was X-Men 1.
Yeah.
Like, because he hit the ground running in that comic.
But even that comic, again, I think it's because we're looking at it
Where they became.
from the perspective of today.
Right.
And in all reality, they just weren't what we have now.
No.
They never would have been in that era, right? Because comics were not taken seriously as a storytelling medium.
But you saw with X-Men specifically, you saw a foothold of what it could be. I mean, you did have in issue 1, you had the leader in the wheelchair.
Right. You also had the mutant hysteria, the pseudo racism that they kind of built into that story.
And like it was the first issue.
Yeah.
You could see like even if you just take that issue out of what X-Men is and you just look at that issue, you see potential for a deeper story.
Yeah, but again, even that first issue, it's still very bland. And I'm not saying that Stan Lee is a bad writer. What I'm saying is that the kind of stories that they could write at that time,
it was the story
were
of the day.
very limited.
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's fair.
But I don't think Stan Lee. I'm going to say this, and this might get me punched by a couple of people. I don't think Stan Lee, if comics were like they were today, I don't think Stan Lee would be who he was.
Well, no, he was the pioneer. Everyone has to be there's always a pioneer.
Right. What I'm saying is I don't think he, God damn, I can't remember how to say this. I don't think he would have the writing style / talent to compete with other writers in today's field. I think Stan Lee was right where he was meant to be at that right time.
But you're not making a blanket statement. Stan Lee himself has said that.
Okay.
In interviews where he's like, no, writers today, they blow me away.
Yeah, we're good then.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Like Stan Lee understands that what comics are today could never be what comics were in the 60s when he started.
Right.
It can't.
He pushed the envelope for his time. And I think that's kind of what you're trying to say.
He did, but one of the biggest things that the first time he stood up to the Comics Code Authority was when he wanted to tell the story of Harry Osborn as a drug addict. And Harry was not a villain yet in the story. He was Peter's friend. He was they were best buds.
And they said,
Stan, you cannot have the main character, one of your main characters of your story, be a drug addict.
And Stan Lee said, "Fuck you."
No, I'm going to print it. I'll just print it without your approval. Because the Comics Code Authority was basically like a rating system.
Yeah.
They were putting a stamp on it that said, this is safe for anybody to read. Right? And we didn't have rating systems yet at the time. That was the only way we understood. And they said, your hero has to win. The bad guy has to lose. You can't have drugs. You can't have cigarettes.
No
There was all kinds of restrictions.
Yeah, no sex.
On your creativity. And Stan Lee had the creativity to push that envelope. And he was one of the first, he was a pioneer in saying, I'm just going to start printing comics without your seal of approval then. Because it's my business. We're paying all the publishing costs. You're not paying anything.
You're getting paid for nothing.
You have no authority over me other than the fact that most of publishers at the time were very adamant that their comics should be approved by the Comics Code.
Well, when did the Comic Code Authority actually go away?
80s.
Yeah.
You sure?
Mm-hmm. Because it was right before Image Comics was founded in the early 90s.
But I still think up until 93, 94, 95, we saw...
Because when Image started, they were... Seth MacFarlane.
Todd McFarlane.
Yeah,
Seth MacFarlane did Family Guy.
I'm losing it.
And more importantly, Orville.
Todd McFarlane was adamant on not using the comic code seal because he's like, I don't need it. So it was still a thing. It
Late
was
80s,
just,
early 90s.
Yeah, it was kind of by the wayside at that point already.
I'm looking it up.
As we started getting into creators, especially more creators that owned their titles, right? This intellectual property is mine. I own it. You're not going to screw me out of royalties on it ever.
Yeah.
Was when they first just started saying, we're done worrying about what they have to say. Because again, it's not like they were a business that had any kind of pull over the comic companies. This was how parents knew this was okay.
Well, you know what's so funny about that?
The 2000s.
Really?
Well, what they do now, based off what I know, is now they try to fight censorship in comics.
Marvel withdrew from the CCA in 2001.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what the Comic Code Authority does now is...
I'm sorry.
Shoot.
In 2011, DC announced that it would discontinue participation.
Well, so I guess the Comics Code Authority never really went anywhere.
No.
Comic companies just stopped caring about it.
But up until 2011, DC was still printing under the CCA.
You got to look at most of the DC characters are a little more lighthearted than Marvel characters. They don't deal with
At least
as
in the
much,
comics they are.
They don't deal with as much. Well, I'm not going to get into that. But DC Comics didn't try to deal with more realism. Their comics were about the fantasy. This Superman, right? He's the epitome. He's the best. He's honest. He's got integrity.
Whoa.
What?
Whoa. Jason, I'm sorry. Talking about the Stan Lee thing. In April 1975, around this time, the United States Department of Health, Education, and Welfare approached Marvel Comics editor-in-chief Stan Lee to do a story about drug abuse. Lee agreed and wrote a 3-part Spider-Man story portraying drug use as a dangerous and unglamorous lifestyle.
Harry was addicted to heroin.
While the code did not specifically forbid depictions of drug, a general clause prohibited all elements or techniques not to specifically mention herein, by which the contrary to the spirit and intent of the code are considered to be in violation of good taste or decency. The CCA has approved at least one previous story involving drugs, but would not approve the Spider-Man stories.
Yeah, and he did it anyway.
Yeah.
He said, "We've already printed them. We already wrote them. We're gonna sell them, regardless of what you want to say."
Well, and he was doing it based on the government saying, "Hey, we need you to do us a favor.
Well, right.
We need you to do a salad."
They wanted to do an anti-drug story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think heroin was an appropriate drug to fight.
How Harry triumphs with Spider-Man's help over his drug problem.
Yeah.
I mean,
guys, don't do heroin.
Don't do heroin.
Stan Lee would not want you to do heroin.
No, Stan Lee would not want you to do heroin, but cocaine.
But it's a great loss, not only for fans, but for everyone.
It is.
I mean, because in all reality, even if you've never read a Marvel comic in your life, you're aware of Stan Lee. You know who Stan Lee is. You've seen a movie that he's had a cameo in.
Like I said, normally when I hop on Facebook after someone dies, I get really enraged by all these people. Like, oh my God, I love Star Trek's the best example. Whenever a Star Trek actor dies, oh my God, I loved fucking Leonard Nimoy. Bitch, you didn't care about Star Trek 3 weeks ago. You were telling me I was a nerd for liking Star Trek.
Right.
Going through Facebook, seeing everyone's reaction, Stanley never like everyone's saying, I'm sad that Stanley died. I did not feel that tinge of anger, that tinge of you're jumping on a bandwagon, because he did touch every single person's life that's on this planet. Even if you never read a Marvel comic, you probably bought a Spider-Man toy. You know who Spider-Man is.
Yeah.
You know who Captain America is.
Yeah, these are pop culture icons.
He gave you these. They're beacons of hope. Yeah. In a very bleak world where shitty stuff happens and all this stuff.
My hope for this, and maybe we'll see a turnaround, is we start getting back to superheroes being superheroes. And we start telling good stories. And we get that beacon of hope, because Stan Lee lit the light. Don't let it go out because he's gone.
No, there's too many writers and artists today that, I mean, this is how they live their lives. Right? These characters are their lives. These are their jobs. There's never going to be a time when these characters aren't what they should be. There's too many people who care too deeply about it. Stan Lee was one of the best that cared so deeply about his creations and the fans that loved them. But he's infected everybody.
Absolutely.
I mean, writers and artists today, they care because Stan Lee paved the way and changed the comic industry so that they could care. And they could make this their job.
Now I'm sad.
It's sad.
I almost teared up a little bit there, actually.
I just want to yell at Jason again.
I've been sad. It's been a sad couple of days.
No, it really has. Well, you know what's funny is
watching all the tribute videos. And
you had mentioned seeing all the posts on Facebook and stuff like that. A lot of my Facebook friends aren't into all the comics and stuff like that, but I get tagged in a lot of that stuff. And just the amount of love that people that don't get into it are showing Stan Lee and comic fans and people like us is really, really cool, because they're like, hey man, I know, this made me think of you. I hope you enjoy this. And like you take that and you run with it, and it's sweet. And the whole thing, like, while it sucks to lose somebody like Stan Lee, like he paved the road for a lot of stuff, and we wouldn't be doing this right now.
Well,
if it wasn't for Stan Lee.
You look at it in our nerd culture. There's only a few. There's only a few that stand out. Gary Gygax,
Jack Kirby,
Gene Roddenberry, John Romita, and Stan Lee. And I cannot.
Bill Finger.
I can't think of a bigger name.
There's not one.
In popularity and recognition, and just flat out what he did.
The only
Steve
character,
Ditko.
Steve Ditko is a good one. The only character that I think is bigger than the character Stan Lee is maybe like Spider-Man himself.
Yeah.
Where the 4-year-old might not know who Stan Lee is, he knows who Spider-Man is. So, and that just pays testament to how big Stan was.
I mean,
and I think it's awesome.
Years into the future, hundreds, if not thousands of years in the future, people will look back.
You just made a 1,000-year prediction.
I did. No, I did. I did. You ready?
When the human race is gone.
No,
Right. The world is dead.
As much as we study Homer's Odyssey, and as much as we look at those tales, the characters and the stories that this man helped create and spawn will still be there, and that's just a testament to a poor guy sitting at a desk drawing funny books.
Well, you know what I think one of the saddest things about this is? We've watched Marvel become something so much more than a comic publisher.
Oh my God, yeah.
They are a multimedia franchise,
Mm-hmm.
and the movies have told a singular story that culminated in Infinity War and will finish off in whatever the 4th Avengers film is. I'm leaning toward Annihilation. I think that's the title.
I think that's what was leaked.
Well, maybe. It could have just been some fan screwing with us all. In any case, the thing that I think is the most sad about this whole thing is he will not get to see how it all concludes.
I disagree.
No.
I don't think that's the most sad thing. I actually think that Stan Lee saw Marvel grow beyond what he could ever, in his wildest imaginations, think it would become. These movies are never going to stop.
Well, no, but we can look at the forthcoming Avengers film as a pseudo conclusion to at least Tony, Steve, and
Right.
Bruce's story, and Thor. I guess.
But
Who's to say he didn't get to see it?
No, because it's not done. I mean, they're still in post production on that movie.
I mean,
he
I'm
didn't
sure
read
there's
the script.
60 million copies of that running around
Nobody
right now.
reads the script. The actors don't even get the full script.
no, that's because certain actors have a problem keeping their mouth shut.
No,
staring
but it doesn't matter if you
Tom Holland.
if you keep your mouth shut. Benedict Cumberbatch can keep his mouth shut, but he's not even seen the full script of the movie.
No, but I think
What scene
I
am I
understand
doing?
what you're saying, but I think kind of the romance about Stan Lee is he was creating stories that would be internal, and maybe him passing before this end is kind of bittersweet and romantic. That because Stan Lee doesn't get to see it end, or it doesn't end in his mind, in his universe.
It never ends. I get it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's so much. One of the big ones, and I'm an MCU fan for sure, but I think Sony, when this Into the Spider-Verse movie that they've got coming out, the animated one with all the different Spider people, looks like a really cool movie.
Mm-hmm.
Not only from a movie perspective, but from a comic fan's perspective, and that's something that really got to me, especially when I was putting up that article. Was Stan Lee's not going to get to see that? It might be. This could be the best comic accurate Spider-Man movie we've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, but
He won't get to see that.
Stan Lee loved Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. I mean,
He loved seeing his characters transcend the books that they were in. But in all reality, Spider-Man, the reason he can say that about pretty much probably even probably Amazing Spider-Man 2, which we can all pretty much agree is a terrible film.
Or Spider-Man 3.
But Stan Lee,
you shut your face.
but
You know
Stan
it's
Lee
bad.
loved Spider-Man so much as his favorite creation that it didn't matter that the movie was terrible. Stan Lee was just excited that Spider-Man was in a movie.
And let's not forget,
I mean, how
he got
crazy
to
would that
be.
be?
He did get to be in the best Spider-Man adaptation with the cartoon, so he's good.
Yes,
He's
that's
good.
true.
I mean, yeah, he did. He actually got to play himself in that
Yeah,
cartoon.
he's good. I mean, I don't think I'm not dead, so, but I don't think you can look at the end of your life. Clearly.
You know what? If you're listening to this in the future and you found out Roger Wayne has died, we are sorry.
Sorry for your loss.
You can't say blanket statements like that, bro.
You motherfucker.
I'm not dead.
You just ruined some asshole's day.
It's gonna crash on the way home.
All right, Mother Jason. You went from being a saint to fucking killing off Roger
Jeez.
in
Don't
one
say things.
episode.
Don't say things like that. Why are you saying something like that?
At this moment, I am not dead. I don't
As
think
we record this.
I don't think I could look back at the end of my life, whenever it may be. It could be in 5 minutes on the way home, or it could be hopefully many, many years down the road. I don't think I could look at the end of my life and look back and not feel that like just an overwhelming pride at what I accomplished if I had accomplished a tenth of the things that man had accomplished for this world. He got us talking. He got us reading. A lot of my friends had learned to read because of Spider-Man. They saw the pictures. They wanted to know what the word said. He got us reading. He got us engaged in
I definitely
continuing
started reading
story.
more books after I became a comic reader.
Yeah.
More actual books.
He was, a lot of times you look at like you watch growing up in the 80s and 90s, you watch sitcoms for your TV dads, but when you read your comics, you got the right and wrong. He guided the generation on what was right and what was wrong. And at the end of the day, like I said, he drew funny books that everyone loved.
Multiple generations at that.
Yeah.
I've also, I mean, to yes, it is tragic and everything, but to make a little more light of, you know, the situation.
Like we haven't been doing that all episode.
Well, we kind of had a little sad note there, right? You know, but there's a couple of videos that have been popping up that I think are just fantastic, and one of them that I've seen a few times on Facebook since all this happened is when Jordan Peele was playing Stan Lee in a Key and Peele sketch.
Okay.
And it's fantastic. I mean, you look it up, right? Like it's so fantastic. And he's basically comes to a meeting of the board of directors at Marvel and starts pitching terrible character ideas to them that he thinks are awesome. And he's Stan Lee, and they don't want to tell him, like, that's bad, Stan. We can't do that. And it's a really, really, not only is it really just a funny sketch, but it comes from a place of love. I mean, Jordan Peele is one of the biggest nerds working in Hollywood today.
Well, also on a more personal note, taking away from him writing Spider-Man and creating these characters, Stan Lee lived a love life. Like, he was married with his wife for 79 years before 76 before she passed.
Yeah.
She also got in a couple of cameos.
Yeah, she was not like his personal life, he lived a life a lot of us just
you can only hope for.
Right.
Yeah.
You take the money and the fame away.
Yeah, you have your sweetheart.
He had his,
that one person.
Right. There through thick and thin. I can't, I mean.
She was in the XMen The Last Stand cameo for him. Or no, X-Men Apocalypse.
That was a bad movie.
It's not a terrible movie.
It is a bad movie.
It's not a great movie.
That's all right. We don't need to talk about that.
Point is, there's a moment where Apocalypse is deactivating all the nuclear weapons on the planet, right?
Right.
But the first thing he does is fire them all off into space, and from a normal person's perspective, you'd think, oh my god, this is the end of the world now, right? Look at all the nuclear bombs. We're all going to die. And Stan Lee is standing there with, you know, his movie wife, who is actually played by his actual wife.
Yeah.
Watching the nuclear, and you can see them reflecting in his sunglasses because he always wore those sunglasses.
Because he's fucking awesome.
Because he's Stan the Man Lee.
I'm debating buying some glasses like that just so I can be more like Stan Lee.
He bought one pair of those glasses in 1967 and just wore them the entire time.
He's like, yeah, these look good.
Yep, I'm in. I guess best way to end it is something we haven't talked about. What was your favorite Stan Lee cameo?
Wow, that's there's a lot of them.
I know what mine is, hands down.
Mine's probably Deadpool.
I seen him in the strip club. Damn it, you stole mine.
I mean, in all reality, that was not only was that one of my favorites because it's hilarious to see Stan Lee announcing the next stripper that's going to come on stage.
Yes.
But after he filmed that, he was being interviewed about his cameo, and he said, they actually put me in a strip club. There was actually naked women walking around. I was just like, this guy's the best, man. Like.
So I guess Deadpool.
Well, Deadpool was mine, but since this motherfucker over here hold that shit,
you waited too long.
I actually really like the "Shut Up, Stan Lee" in Deadpool 2. Love it. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Mallrats.
Oh my god, his Mallrats cameo, the life advice that he gives in it.
Like,
well, the best is that Jason Lee doesn't realize it at first.
Right, he's like,
all of a sudden
he's like,
holy shit,
Stan Lee,
you're
nice
Stan Lee.
You know, yeah, and that moment, like just hearing him, like hearing him give his love life, and then at the end, walking up to Brody, going, "Yeah, so I just spun a tale of Spider-Man. It's awesome." And you see Stan Lee talking about, like it summed up Stan Lee perfectly to me. It was love your life, love your wife, love your work, and in that cameo, he showed all three.
Yeah. Now, anybody know what his first comic property cameo was?
Which one?
No. Trial of the Incredible Hulk. With
Interesting.
The TV movie.
He was on the jury.
Was he?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
Doesn't that have Matt Murdock in it?
No, that was the movie after it.
Okay.
The movie after it had Thor and Daredevil in it.
Yeah, that was a really bad costume.
It was.
It was so bad.
Was it
Thor just
Captain
looked-
America in it
Thor
too?
just looked like a bad Viking.
Oh my God, did he?
Isn't that the one with Cap in a
No,
fucking motorcycle?
no, that's
that-
actually a
That's
movie.
actually a movie that they
God.
made.
There's two of
Okay.
them.
Yeah.
There's two of those
Okay.
movies.
There's Captain America and Return of
Return of Captain America. Yeah, there's two of them.
And Red Skull looks like a bad
That movie, you know what?
styrofoam made costume.
There were
with red
moments where
spray
we
paint.
didn't know if Marvel was going to make it,
Nerds.
and that right there.
Guys, if you wanna watch a movie that acts as birth control, like you don't want to get laid, fucking turn that shit on when that lady comes over and
The best is just someone talking about that Captain America movie. In that movie, I think it was like an Honest trailer I was watching, but in that movie, Captain America actually tricks people into letting him steal their cars by pretending to be sick. And he like gets out of the car like he's gonna throw up, and then when the person comes out to check on him, he just like steals their car and drives away. I'm
True
serious.
justice in the American
I'm
way.
serious. He does it twice in the same movie.
Who the fuck wrote that?
I don't know.
Roger
It's
Corman,
terrible.
wasn't it? No, I don't know.
I want to
No,
know.
he did Fantastic Four.
I want to
Yeah,
know
he
who
did
the
that
fuck
terrible
signed
Fantastic
off on
Four.
that.
Marvel.
No, so you're sitting there, okay?
No,
This comes
no.
across your desk.
Also-
Captain America steals car. Okay, yeah.
Also, he has fake ears.
Yeah.
So they did this thing with the head thing that he wears,
Yeah.
where instead of just covering up his ears, which why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Or cutting the mask to have his actual ears exposed, they decided to put fake, very obviously fake plastic ears on the outside of
It
it.
was
better.
It was a different time. They didn't know how to make comic book movies.
All
it
was
was
better to hear you.
well
with my dear.
before Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out in theaters. These movies were not the
Those
best.
Captain America movies never debuted in theaters.
No, but we're
They
talking
were
about
straight to video.
But they
It was
came out
straight to
before.
shit show.
Before. I think the worst. Okay, here we go. Real quickly, round table. This will be the last one. Worst Marvel property outside of comics, like talking about the Captain America movies. What is the worst thing Marvel has done outside of comics?
Fantastic Four,
Which one?
the first one.
With Roger Cormack or
Although-
I mean,
Although to be fair, the most recent one was pretty terrible too. But no, because that movie, they only made that movie to hold on to the rights.
yes, they did.
And it never saw the light of day. It never even got a release.
It's out on YouTube. It's in the YouTube.
but no, like
lands.
they were copies of it, but they never put them in stores. They never sold that ever.
Right.
And the only reason it exists today is because of fans who have put it together online and pieced it all together and are saying, "Here's your Fantastic Four."
It's
movie."
not good.
Fans are brilliant.
Chris?
So, okay, years ago, this is right after the Disney buyout happened.
Right, if you take my idea, I'm going to stab you.
I went into a Toys R Us. That was still a thing. And
It's coming back.
it's supposed to. So I go into a Toys R Us, and there is a Mickey Mouse Spider-Man. And I was so fucking pissed off by this, I cannot even begin to express my frustration. I took a picture of it, and I was like, Disney needs to fucking stop. I wanted Disney to shut down at that point. I was so I was distraught. That was the biggest piece of shit outside of comics that I think I've seen.
I'm going to cheat. I got two, but they're both tied into each other. One, Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie.
Ugh.
It was bad.
Two,
It was a good 80s action movie.
it was a good
bad
action movie. It was a bad
Punisher
Punisher movie. Two, the one that actually was the worst. Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. with David
Freaking
Hasselhoff.
Hasselhoff
Damn
playing
right.
Fury.
Yes.
David Hasselhoff is a good Nick Fury, though.
No, he's not.
Fuck out of here.
No, he's
Look
not.
at him.
He
Look
ain't got
at him.
nothing on Samuel L. Jackson.
No, I mean, motherfucker.
Yeah, no, if they allowed Hasselhoff to actually go off like Sammy J does in these movies, maybe.
I think. See, I think he
First
has.
of all, he's never uttered the phrase "motherfucker"
I
because
understand.
it's Disney, and he never will
He
because it's Disney.
he said mother
Before he
it
got
doesn't matter.
powdered.
We knew what he was gonna say,
fucker.
but it doesn't matter. You can't. They won't ever let him say that on screen because this is Disney. We're talking about here, guys.
You know, fuck you for not letting him finish the sentence, you cocks.
I
Did
will say
anybody
this.
else see
no,
that-
hold on,
that-
real quick. We give the mouse a lot of shit, but the mouse produced NYPD Blue, and that was the first TV show on network TV to drop the S bomb
and have nudity
on
network television.
So
Yeah.
Disney will.
Mostly it was just Dennis
It
Franz's
was Dennis
big
Franz's
hairy ass.
ass. Just
But every now and again you got some like side boob, you know.
God, you remember
side
seeing
boob.
side boob on TV when
I
you
know.
were a kid?
What are you
How
talking about?
stoked
It
I-
blew
you
my
got?
mind.
I still get excited when I see side boob. I'm like, hey, it's side boob. You know what's on the other side of that boob? More boob.
My wife though, she showed me something last night, and
Yeah,
it was
let's talk about this. Slow it down.
This
it
is
was
hot.
literally a picture of someone who had made Stan Lee look like he had turned to dust.
I saw
Infinity
that.
War, and I didn't react to it because I was not having the greatest night, but it didn't matter. The point was, she thought it was too soon, and in all reality, it probably was because he just died. But I think it's such a good tribute to where we are with the movies and the fact that Stan Lee died.
There was two that got me. One was Stan Lee standing at the gate of heaven and the light shining down on him and said, "You did a pretty good job creating the universe as your own."
Yeah.
And then the other one was Thanos.
Joe Moore posted that one.
Joe Moore posted
Yeah.
Thanos standing in front of Stan Lee's grave going, "I only meant for half the universe. I didn't mean for it all. Can I use a time stone to bring you back?"
Right.
And I was like, God damn it.
Yeah.
I just keep I've listened to a bunch of interview clips and stuff like that, and you hear his voice, and honestly, that gets me more stoked than anything.
The man was always, even in his declining health, the man was always excited to talk comics.
When he had this awesome radio voice that none of us have.
Yeah, he was just the man.
I mean,
the
come
man
I don't
just-
have a radio voice, I can tell you that.
No, he sounded awesome all the time, and like you listen to us talk, and it's like, listen to these freaking idiots.
like the man, he just oozed charisma.
Yeah.
Like just, I don't know if it was in the hair gel he used or those special sunglasses he bought in the
fucking
70s
mustache.
or the fucking porn stash. That motherfucker just oozed charisma.
How many people remember when Stan Lee had a beard?
Oh, I do.
Oh, yeah,
He had it in
yeah.
Mallrats, didn't he?
Did he have the beard in Mallrats?
I think he had the whole beard in Mallrats.
Maybe. I don't know. I just remember Stan Lee had a beard for a while, and he looked awesome with a beard, too.
Stanley just always looked awesome.
I posted that little small snippet from that cutscene in Spider-Man, the Spider-Man video game.
Yeah.
Where
I
he
saw
got
that.
where he got his cameo. He got a cameo in the video game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As,
he had the full beard in Mallrats.
okay.
I thought so.
As Mick, the guy who owns the restaurant that Spider-Man or Peter and Mary Jane used to go on dates.
Yeah.
And it's just such a good moment because what I tagged it with was they really were, because in that he just says, "It's great to see you back together again. You two always were my favorites."
Aw.
And I was like, this sums it up more than anything, because Spider-Man, he always said Spider-Man was one of his greatest creations.
Yeah.
This is one of the greatest things he gave to the world, was this little kid with spider powers.
Isn't that funny?
And I just, even way back when I first saw that, when the game first came out months ago, and I first saw that cameo, it brought a tear to my eye. Because it's beautiful.
This is the last
and he's
thing.
rendered perfectly.
Last thing I'm going to say. We've talked a lot about what Stan Lee has given us. He's given us Spider-Man. He's given us great comics.
Hope.
He's given us hope. No, but Stan Lee truly has given us the gift to dream. And one of the greatest things he said was, follow what you do, make it what you do, and love what you do. And he's given us, everyone, that drive. And that's something that only 1 out of every billion people can do.
Yeah, I mean, he's quoted as saying in that interview he did with Kevin Smith, "Don't ever let anybody make you feel bad for pursuing your dreams."
Right. And that's just, I think that is what we should take away more than he gave us a web slinger or he gave us mutants.
Yeah.
The man truly gave us a reason to follow our dreams.
Give you the path.
Yeah, I mean, the reaching higher. Don't let people make you feel bad because you dream. Because Stan Lee's living, well,
God damn it, Jason.
it's a phrase. It's an idiom.
Stanley's
Living-
legacy is living proof.
He said it's an
Stanley's-
idiom. You're an idiot for saying no.
Stan Lee's legacy is living proof that you can do what you dream and it works. And you'll be happy and you'll have a good life.
Even when he can't pay the bills, because there were many times he couldn't.
Yeah, Stan Lee was still part of the company when they almost went bankrupt.
Yeah.
He had the most to lose from that. It was his company. I mean, there was, other people in charge of it at that point, but I think he was still CFO at that time. Because he was the CFO for a while after the fact.
Yeah.
Once the company became a thing.
Well, then, should we end it there?
I think
Dare to dream.
Dare to dream.
All right, guys.
just
We're
stay
gonna we're gonna sign it off right for Stan. Excelsior.
Excelsior.
Bye, true believers.